let's introduce ourselves. Ara, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm an architect here in California,
Where in California?
Glendale, California.
Mm.
I did my undergrad at Woodbury. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Woodbury. It's a school in Burbank, California. And then I did grad school at Columbia GSAP in the urban design program. And my instructor, Gita, invited Nikos to talk to us. I think it was our last semester.
Yeah, so you were
Uh,
there.
yeah. And it stuck in my head, the whole thing about getting the scale right for the human. It really stuck in my head.
Fantastic. Yeah, Gita Mehta is my friend in Columbia University. She's an urbanist.
Yeah.
So we need to send her the new course we put up. My name's Ann. I'm a Master of Architecture. I went to UCLA,
Cool.
Master's in Architecture. And I'm licensed. And then 4 years ago, we founded a nonprofit, the Human Architecture and Planning Institute. And we use eye tracking, facial expression analysis, galvanic skin response to understand the human experience of buildings. And we've just launched a course. It's on the AIA website, 3.5 learning units to understand the human experience better and design better places for people. So I can send you that link. I sent it to Nikos yesterday. So it's 3.5 hours and 3.5 AIA learning units to renew your license, you know? So yeah. So yeah, I lived in LA and I lived through the earthquake and it freaked me out. The big earthquake in the 1990s freaked me out. So I moved back.
Oh, that was the 90s? I thought it was the 80s.
In Northridge.
That was in the 90s?
Yeah, it was like a 6.7 on the Richter scale. It was huge. It was terrifying. It was like 1994. I was there. So I moved back to the East Coast after that. There was another earthquake in California yesterday or today, I think.
Oh, yeah, this morning. Yeah.
It was smaller. It was like 4.8 or something. Yeah.
Okay, so you both know who I am, a longtime friend of the late Christopher Alexander. And since well, before he passed away, he was incapacitated. So he's been out of action for 15 years. Some friends of mine have been using new techniques, new tools to prove what Alexander wrote.
Exactly.
In his original books, the Pattern Language and the Nature of Order. And Anne is one of them who pioneered the use of eye tracking. So Ara, do you know her book, Cognitive Architecture?
I can
I'm
send
not familiar.
Okay, I can send you a free PDF. It's the
do.
first book in history to have 40 images of eye-tracked architecture.
Cognitive.
Architecture, second edition. It comes up. It's by Routledge.
So this is Cognitive Architecture. Okay, so Anne took this tool, eye tracking, that was developed by the advertising industry and applied it to architecture. And then you immediately see where the eye goes and how the brain seeks the type of coherence that Christopher talked about.
Right, exactly.
Which creates the attachment, the engagement with the surfaces and the volumes of good living architecture. So unfortunately, Christopher passed away before these revolutionary developments occurred. But that's just the beginning of Anne's work. So Anne, including other people, now have begun to attach the actual emotions as measured by medical sensors on the body, because this has become miniaturized. So you not only measure engagement, okay, this is interesting, and I'm connecting to this room, the interior of the room or the outside facade of the building, but I feel joy or I feel repelled by it. So this is emotion which is separate from the engagement. And Anne and others are using this cutting edge technology to measure that.
Yeah, so the business world is already there. They're already using it. The car companies are the major purchasers of this technology. The car companies and the tech companies.
They use them to make cars or
they use them to understand the human experience.
Okay.
So the lead designer for the Lincoln was told he had to come up with a new idea for the new Lincoln because of COVID. You know what he said? The new idea for the Lincoln is when you get in, this is a quote, you'll feel like you're hugged by your mother.
Whoa.
Because they understand the design world and the business world. At Harvard Business School, you go to Harvard Business School now, you take courses on emotional intelligence.
Whoa.
When I went to UCLA, emotions were never mentioned once. So it's that's the big pivot, is now that the business world is completely designing for our emotional experience and the fact that our non-conscious brain directs our conscious behavior. So they want to manipulate the non-conscious to make you reach for the cereal package on the shelf. So, and they know how to do that. They're very, very good. And they design, so Apple hires PhD neuroscientists. PhD neuroscientists are more likely to get a good job at Apple because the way academia is going, putting money into administration rather than professorial jobs, they're more likely to get a big career at Apple than at an academic institute. So all Apple, I teach the Boston Architecture College, and tomorrow I'll be taking my students to the Apple store, and we'll be looking at the whole Apple interior, how every single aspect of the interior is PhD neuroscience. So the most important thing for a person to see, because of our brain architecture, is people. And because the brain takes 60,000 times longer to read text than see an image, most of the Apple ads, most of the things will have almost no letters in them. The Apple logo is just an apple. PhD neuroscience. Get it? Because the more text in an ad, the less likely the brain will read it. Get it?
Wow.
So that's it. So Steve Jobs has a very famous quote: the broader our understanding of the human experience, the better design we will have. So that's why he brought in the neuroscientists very early. And what Steve was really talking about was the non-conscious human experience. And you go in the Apple ad and it feels like kind of all these big heavy tables are there with like 6 iPhones on it. Do you need a big heavy table? What? Why do you need a heavy table for 6 pounds of item? Yes, because cognition is embodied. When you see something on a big table, your brain non-consciously tells you it's important. So just like Queen Elizabeth, you never saw her on a stool. You never saw her on a folding chair. She was always on a throne or a big chair. Or even Putin, he's at this giant table. You know, it's the idea they understand. I mean, let's not talk about Putin, but the people like Apple, they understand that the non-conscious directs you. So that's why you walk in the Apple store, all you see is people. It's really almost laid out like a French cafe, right? People need people. You go to a genius bar and you need help.
Let me intervene here. So what is happening is that we have interior architecture and design maximized to make you feel comfortable.
Right.
And then superimposed on that is the attraction of the product, which is the advertising.
Right.
So the two components go together to make you buy the whatever, the iPhone, a new iMac or something. You know, this is brilliantly designed.
So the real problem with, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the real problem with architectural education is it's completely divorced from where the business world is. And it's completely divorced from understanding the human experience. I'm a licensed architect. There was zero bio requirement, zero psych requirement to get a license in building human habitat. What? That makes no sense. So the architectural education is completely broken. The business world is not.
Yeah, okay, but you know, Ara is not interested in architecture education. Ara is an architect.
He was like me, though. He was miseducated.
But we have Ara today to talk to because he's an architect and he has discovered this human aspect of architecture. Right. Now, when you apply the diagnostic tools that we are working with, they confirm what Christopher Alexander said decades ago, that contemporary architecture is avoidant. It makes you feel sick. It creates anxiety. Yet stupid people are commissioning these buildings that make you feel anxiety and feel sick. So these are the dinosaurs, okay? There's a little niche here for young architects to come in and start designing and building beautiful buildings that make you feel comfortable. And that has nothing to do with style, but it has to do with following what Christopher Alexander laid out in the pattern language and the nature of order. And then you have the diagnostic tools. So before you build something, you take the virtual tour of the design, and then you can adjust it to make it more engaging and to create more joy. And you can show that in a presentation to the client. If the client says, oh, you know, this looks a bit strange, a bit old-fashioned, you tell them, you know, this is the latest medical research, and the tools show you that the actual the actual user's body feels joy and feels well-being and lowers the blood pressure. It's good for the user's health. You know, so you sell an office building to the client by using these arguments. And your regular architect has nothing to go on. They say, you know, oh, this is, you know, nice and cutting edge, and it looks like something by Arata Isozaki on the cover of the magazine. That's garbage. It's just a ruse to get another commission for a crappy building.
Yeah, and I think too, post-COVID, your generation, what I see, and because I teach, you know, young people, my students range in age from like 20 to 40, I think there's a real interest in well-being. And they're talking more about stress in a way that when I went to architecture school at UCLA, you know, 30 years ago, nobody talked about that. But now people are talking about happiness. People are talking about stress. People talk about well-being. And so being able to show that and talk about that people will be happier when they walk in here. And you actually now, it's a little crazy, you can even do a study before something's built to actually statistically get whether people will smile or not when they approach what you've designed.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's all there. AI is already here. And we can predict. We're just not asking the right questions. Will people feel happy? Will people feel stressed? In Boston, it's a real problem. A woman died on the steps of a hospital having an asthma attack because she couldn't find the door.
Oh my goodness.
You know, hospitals are so poorly designed, or they're so added onto, you can't find the door. You know what I'm talking about.
Are there any contemporary architects that you two think do good jobs of creating things that are?
Well, you have to understand where contemporary art. Look, there's this Buddhist quote by Daisaku Akita: "A successful vision of the future is not possible without an accurate knowledge of the past." Now, I'm telling you that because you have to understand, where does contemporary architecture come from? Where does it come from?
Yeah, wait. Before you launch into that, Anne, I want to answer Ara's question. I'm ashamed to say that the only contemporary architects who build human environments are the traditional ones, who are marginalized. The traditional ones, not because they, they're great geniuses, but they follow tried and true models of building to human scale, to adjust to human dimensions. So it's in the traditional language, and they are the only ones who build buildings today that are pleasant to be in. Okay, they look old-fashioned, but they're the only ones that do it. The cutting-edge architects are building horrible stuff that art museums that make you feel ill, or hundreds of thousands run-of-the-mill just glass boxes that are neither here nor there, and they're mostly anxiety producing over the long term because they don't offer any engagement. You know, as Anne says, 99% of the commercial buildings, you can't find the entrance because it is the methodology, the typology excludes finding the entrance. So people are stuck.
Right. But if you start studying humans, you realize nature's preset before you're born. It's even preset. You have to have water. You have to have air. It's also preset biologically what you need to see.
Yeah, but Anne,
That's the basic thing. So that's why it's so interesting to me. What's fascinating to me was when I see how the European travel agencies, how they try to get American tourists to visit Amsterdam or to visit Europe. What they show is always only the traditional buildings. Amsterdam is full of modern architecture. There's a biological reason for that. Yes, I'll shut up.
No. Ara asked the question. Can you tell him any architects building today?
Well, I would argue the English architects that are doing the traditional architecture, you know, Poundbury, that's
what I said.
King Charles did, Poundbury.
Can you think of anything else?
No, because the roots of modernism are in trauma. Walter Gropius, Mies van der Rohe, Neutra, they all had PTSD from World War I. And when you have PTSD, which wasn't even a word in the doctor's dictionary till 1980, when you have PTSD, that changes how you perceive reality.
Okay, before we get into that, there is no other
No, you
contemporary
can't. No, you
architect that is
can't,
doing
because
something
your
nice.
brain, I hate to break it to you, Nikos and Ann, your brain isn't modern. It's the same brain as a primate on the savannah in Africa 40,000 years ago. We're not
No,
modern.
I want you to make I want you to make a definitive statement like in the presidential debate. You are stating that there is no practicing architect today aside from the traditional architects who are
No.
creating nice human environments. Are you stating that?
You can't. You can't.
Peter Zumthor, maybe?
What?
Peter Zumthor, some of
Oh,
his.
I hate Peter
No?
Zumthor.
Okay.
No,
No, you can't.
look, Peter Zumthor, the
The
famous bats.
fallacy, modern architecture.
Wait, the famous bats, the raw concrete, they're ugly, okay? That raw concrete, especially when it's wet in those bats. I know it is given as the example of beautiful architecture. It's like a morgue. The raw concrete is horrible.
You can't do it. And what's fascinating about modern architecture, I was just in London.
Wait.
No, but hold on, what's fascinating,
You're
it
not
ages
letting
so badly.
you're not letting Ara ask his questions. We're here to answer
Well,
Ara's
I
question.
totally agree with Nikos. He's absolutely right. There is no modern architecture. You can't, modern architecture is in a false principle of tabula rasa, that the mind's a blank slate. The mind is not a blank slate. It's preset.
Let Ara ask some questions.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Maybe it's because like in architecture school, I've been molded a certain way, but I mean, I see how it might be anxiety inducing for some people, but certain buildings I find just like phenomenal, like the Morphosis Caltrans building where that skin peels away and you see the structure. And I mean, I think Tom Main would argue that just seeing the structure, it kind of might ease the human because you see how the building works, and he exposes a lot of like the electrical system, the mechanical system, and the structural system.
Yeah, but that's not how the brain works. Are you talking about Tom Main?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was my teacher at UCLA.
Oh, wow.
It was totally crazy. Yeah, no, he doesn't understand anything about how the brain works. He never took a biology course, and it's actually false. He's assuming the fallacy of Tom Main is that we're thinking creatures that feel. That's false. The Lincoln car designer got it right. We're feeling creatures that think. So Tom is overly intellectual.
Yeah, let me chime in on this. Ara, the explanation you gave about the building being attractive was an intellectual one. You see how the thing works, but that's not how the human body responds.
Exactly.
The sensors in the human body tell you if you engage and find this building friendly, or if it alarms you. And that's separate from the intellectualization. And this is what Anne is measuring. And the measurements become a shock because you go up against a building that's supposed to be nice, and you find that the sensors tell you that the body is reacting negatively. So even if you're an architect that likes this building because of some intellectual properties, your own body is reacting negatively. You're getting aroused, like if you're faced with a tiger. And stress is bad for the body, makes you ill in the long term. So the only way to judge is through these medical sensors.
Tom Main's thinking is completely fallacious. And his buildings will last. I would never want to meet someone for a date in front of a Tom Main building. I would want to live in front of a Tom Main building. That'd be terrifying. A city full of Tom Main buildings would be dystopia. Okay. It's so funny.
Wait. Ara, more questions, please.
Okay, sure. Well, the Bilbao effect, the Frank Gehry's Bilbao Museum.
There is no Bilbao effect.
What a disaster.
There's no Bilbao effect. I have a friend who is an architect in Bilbao, and he has studied it. There is no Bilbao effect. It's just hype. It's hype that was created by the contractors in Bilbao who built the museum. The builders, the local builders.
Well, you know what happened with that museum? They had to hire the artist to do the big puppy in front of it. There's a giant.
Yeah, Jeff Koons. Jeff Koons
is his puppy. And the museum directors realized people wouldn't find the front door. So they hired Koons to do. So before the museum opened, the big sculpture of the puppy with the changing foliage on it was put up, because that has become the identity of Bilbao.
Yeah, not the building.
Not the building. I know some people from MIT who recently went to Bilbao, and they all got together for their picture. Where do you think they got together for the picture? Right in front of the puppy. So without the puppy, Bilbao collapses. Again, just like Tom Main, Frank Gehry's false precept that the mind's a blank slate. The mind's not a blank slate. The car companies know that. The architects are miseducated. They don't. You go to Harvard Business School now, you go to Suffolk University Business School now in Boston, you have an eye tracking lab that measures facial expressions, galvanic skin response, your sweat glands, because the business people want to know exactly how you respond to a website, to a brand, to a package.
Yes, but the architecture schools are not interested because the
No, the
architecture
architecture
schools,
schools, I think some of them are starting to be. The fact is, I have been hired to teach at Boston Architecture College. And some of them are starting to be, and I think the students are super interested in understanding the emotional experience.
okay, more questions. Ara, please.
So, I mean, it seems like we all agree that like the piazzas of Rome are designed well. The piazzas,
The old ones, the old ones. There are some new ones that are horrid because they're designed on the wrong principles. They violate all of Christopher Alexander's patterns for the piazzas.
Are you talking about Piazza del Campo?
No, the new ones, new ones.
Piazza del Campo is fantastic in Siena.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about the traditional ones satisfy all of Christopher Alexander's principles for an urban space. They're wonderful. There are new piazzas in suburbs of Italian cities that are horrible because they do not follow the correct design rules. Is that what you wanted to say, Ara?
No, I mean, I wasn't familiar that there were new ones. Like, and are they where? Where are the new ones in
Look,
Italy?
outside of Rome, there's ugly apartment buildings, that stretch way out, and that's where people who cannot afford to live in the center of Rome live. And occasionally there's supposed to be a piazza. Nobody uses it because it's ugly. It violates all of the patterns that apply for a piazza.
Have you ever seen eye tracking? Do you know what it is?
I haven't seen eye tracking.
No, you don't know what it is.
But I'm assuming it follows how the eye follows
What?
does it follow how the human eye reads the elevation of the building or the interior?
It shoots up infrared light in the eye, and then it follows where the eye looks. And then because your brain is preset to look for certain things. And from evolution, I mean, I can show you if you want, and for 2 minutes, I can just show you some eye tracking. Nikos, is that okay? I can just show you.
Of course.
I can just show you really quickly how powerful it is.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
this is fantastic for Ara who hasn't seen this.
Companies like, BMW, Tesla, they do not screw around. And so they want to test everything. And they, here, I could show you it really quickly here. Let me just make sure I'm calling up the right. Oh, here it is. Here it is, open. Let me see what I have here. I can just pull up something quickly.
Are you guys fans of Eero Saarinen?
Excuse me?
Saarinen, yeah, I consider him not so bad, but his father, Elil Saarinen, was a wonderful architect, and I've seen some of his buildings in Helsinki.
Elil Saarinen? I wasn't familiar with Elil Saarinen.
Elil Saarinen, a great architect, and I visited, say, the train station in Helsinki, and the city has destroyed this beautiful building by painting over all the ornaments that Elil Saarinen did. Totally innovative ornaments for, say, 1920, and they've painted over in a way to disguise them. Eliel.
Oh, you have to let me be a screen. You have to let me share my screen. Just make me a co-host.
But okay.
You can just go to participant and say.
Yeah, no. You should be able to share now. Try it.
It's okay. Yeah, I can share. Here we go. So can you guys see?
Yeah.
So this is like the kind of stuff we do. So it's the whole idea that we're in a new time, an age of biology. The English came up with this.
No, don't give us the whole
talk. I won't do that. But here, just an example. Here's
a
quick example. Here's an example. So this is a famous building, Villa Rotonda in Italy. And so what she's just looking at this for 15 seconds. And so the big circles are the fixations, the lines are the saccades. So you go to business school in Boston, you're going to have one of these because you need to know where people look, you see. And everyone does look at the world a tiny bit differently. You can see this woman looks a little differently. Right. And so what the business people do, they're really into stats. They want to get the statistics. So what they do is they'll have 30 people look at something, and then they'll do time to first station, where they look first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And when you really do this study, you understand how much that Villa Rotunda couldn't be as famous. This building was the template for the White House, believe it or not. George Washington hired an Irish architect who had built a building, a copy of this, to design the White House in the United States. And so basically, this building couldn't be as famous if it didn't have all the statues on it. You see, that's where people look. And so this is the layout. This is the same technology, Honda, BMW. And so the eye tracker is right here. You see that little tripod there? That's sending infrared light she can't send to her eye. And then the camera's recording it. And so companies like iMotions track everything because they really want to know everything, right? You get it? The big idea. Freud noticed this. He died before this tech was available, but he said, mine's an iceberg. It floats with 1 substance of blah, 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 water. He interviewed hundreds of people, Freud, right? And he realized the non-conscious was directing their conscious behavior. But when you go on the web now to like website design pages, they'll say 95% of brain activity is beyond our conscious awareness. So all the modern designers are really designing for the non-conscious brain. And this is like a Harvard neuroanatomist. She is a TED Talk that's been viewed 25 million times. And she says in the TED Talk, many of us may think of ourselves as thinking creatures that feel. Biologically, we're feeling creatures that think.
Yeah, and let me interrupt. So the way the body responds to architecture is from the 95% unconscious.
Exactly.
And that affects our health and well-being and the mood we are in, and whether we feel like working, whether we feel like loving our child. Okay, that's the 95% that's hidden. And Anne said, architects that go through architecture will design for the 5%, the intellectual, the superficial, the obvious.
Nikos, you're beautiful. That's exactly
it. Please go on, Anne.
I'll just go really quickly. So with architecture, what's really fascinating to me, we did this study at Tufts, where actually a professor there got a grant for the city of New York to look at buildings that are public buildings, libraries. This is in Queens, New York, library. And what we did is we had some Tufts student look at the building in like 14 seconds. And then we photoshopped out the windows, and look at the difference. Without conscious awareness or control, the person, without even knowing it, right, will look at the brain, makes them look at the building differently. It's just incredible data. And so you can ask people.
Okay, let me intervene again. Yep. Christopher Alexander would analyze this building, the one on the left that's photoshopped, that doesn't have the windows, and say, this building is missing something on those blank walls, according to the theory of the 15 properties and the wholeness, and we need to add something there. And this is the proof of what Alexander said.
Exactly right. He's exactly right. And you know what? I've asked 700 people. I show this often in my talks. I'd be happy to give a talk to your firm and show these same slides. I say, no, if we're going to, if you have the books and are going to the library, I'm going to park to the car. Which library do you want to wait in front of? The building on the left or the building on the right? Ara, where do you think which building people say they want to wait in front of?
Of course, on the right.
Exactly. Of course it's on the right. And I kind of can imply why, because non-consciously, they can fixate. And what's even more interesting is you can do this kind of study, really aggregating the data. 30 people looked at the one on the left. 33 people looked at the one on the right. Different people. That's the problem with a study. It takes a long time to do them. So you had over 60 people doing this, right? 30 on the left, 33 different on the right. And what's fascinating for me as an architect was that they find the door in like 0.9 seconds. But by 10 seconds, they're looking beyond. Whereas in the other one, they look beyond, but then they look back at the building. You see, it's really interesting. So your brain is already looking beyond the building. It was fascinating to see that. And then you can do studies like this, where this is in Somerville, Massachusetts, near Tufts University. And I had a friend who's good at Photoshop, add some Matisse-like print. Which one do you think people would rather look at? The one on the left, the parking garage on the left, or one on the right?
On the right, probably.
Yeah. And this is what's amazing again. This was just a pilot study. We only had 10 people to look at it. What was amazing is that when it doesn't have the art, the brain made people without their awareness look down the street. When the art is there, look what happens. Look where the brain looks. It doesn't even look down the street. It's really looking, the red is showing where they're looking. It's looking on the art. And this is where it gets even crazier. Welcome to your world. You can then measure how many times people smiled. This aggregates the data of 10
Yes,
people looking at it.
this is really important because smiling means that certain hormones are released in the body and help to make you feel happy, which helps in long-term health and well-being.
Yeah,
Smiling.
exactly. What Nico said is exactly right. It's oxytocin. So only 4 people of 10 smiled once in that 14-second. But then look what happens here. Look what happens here. So this is the little dots are aggregating the viewer data. You can really see it's really focused there. And you can see how many more times. 5 people smiled 3 times. Isn't that incredible? So you could actually make a case saying a child walking to school will arrive happier passing this building than passing that building. It's crazy, huh? This is where we're at. And this is a little crazy. This software I happen to have was by a company called, it's called Emotion by a company called Facet. You know what happened? Ready? Welcome to our world. Apple bought it, took it off the market.
Wow.
If you're a $2 trillion company, you want to have access to tools that keep you at the apex.
Yes,
Right.
and deny them to others. But fortunately, there are other startups that are developing things that are similar.
Then Affectiva, the Media Lab at MIT, they also invented software that does something similar. It also measures, because you have 43 muscles, they're called action units on the face, and how their algorithms, if you're happy, the brow goes up, this goes up. Affectiva, that rolled out, you can still access it, but it has been bought. It was sold in 2023 to a car company, a company that sells stuff for cars out of Sweden, but it's still available. So
okay,
you can
wait. Let's take a pause because Ara is the quiet type. Ara, do you have anything to ask us?
I'm thinking.
There's a deluge of information.
Yeah. So I think, well, there are buildings way worse than what like the architects of today are doing, because people are just they need to make money, so they're getting clients and designing buildings, and the client doesn't want to spend time for schematic design, so it's like they want to submit to the city as soon as possible. So you get a big box with like 1 or 2 punched windows and submit to the city.
right.
And I mean, compared to a lot of the buildings I see around, like some of those architects' buildings, they are pretty incredible. There's like a ton of light flowing in and ventilation, and it's not, they seem like decent spaces and kind of cool looking. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't want to walk around them like this.
Wait. Ara said something interesting. Ara, have you experienced those buildings inside in person? Because they may look very cool in a rendering or in a photo, but the human experience that we have been talking about may be totally different. So beyond the excitement, if you have to enter this building and walk in every day to work in an office, that's what we're looking at, not the excitement
Yeah, true.
of approach. So these are 2 different ways of judging.
No, you're up against, it's hard. It's a hard thing. But the fact is, cars didn't have seatbelts the first 40 years. And when I was a kid, there was only leaded gas, but eventually we did change. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Definitely now, and like a building like this is a public facility, a library in New York. The architect designed it. I would have thought, well, probably people will like looking at the reflections, right? But we eye tracked it, and I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's quite bland.
We eye tracked it. People don't look at the reflections at all. They look at the sexy lady on the yoga pose. And so designing a public, and this is really interesting. This aggregates the data, just showing how long it takes, because so much is going on the street. There's so many people.
Yeah, nobody looks at the building.
Nobody looks at the building at all. So
They
you
look at
designed a public
the traffic
facility
light.
that requires public funding, and people aren't going to look at it. And this is
If you
even more fun.
if you compare that building, the library in New York with, what was that Morphosis building? The Bill and Melinda Gates Hall. There's a Bill and Melinda Gates Hall where it's like the form looks kind of similar, but it's highly ornamented and it has these modules that shift. And it's not two horizontal lines. The lines.
Yeah, I cannot remember. I've seen a picture, but I cannot remember.
And it has actually, even on the ground level, it looks like kind of like a colonnade. The columns are like more shaped.
Where is it? What town is it in?
Bill and Melinda Gates Hall morphosis. Let me see. I haven't seen it in person. I mean, where is it?
Well, you know, it'll be worth
Ithaca.
eye tracking, but again, Ara, the
Oh my God,
important
it's
thing.
terrible. Oh my God, look at it. Oh my God.
Well, share the. Oh, it looks awful, but look.
But look at the skin. It has a lot of subtleties on
Okay,
the skin.
no. We don't
Yeah,
want
but that's an avoidant building, Ara.
no,
That's
we
totally
don't
avoidant.
want to frighten Ara. What we
You don't want
can
to find out
do.
that's avoidant. Oh my God, it's bad.
Look.
I wouldn't want to live. I wouldn't want to send a child there.
Anne, please.
Okay.
Ara, what somebody can do is to take a film, you know, a sequence of photos as you approach, find the entrance and enter the building, and then you do the eye tracking for each one of those, and that will tell you, is
That's
this a good
brilliant.
building or not?
We could do it, you know, and we have the software. We can measure eye tracking and facial expression. No one's ever done it. If you want to help us and collaborate, we'd be happy to do it.
Sure. I mean, if I'm looking at these morphosis buildings, my eye is gonna track, and I'm gonna be excited looking at these buildings. But maybe that's not the average person. I don't know, because
Wait, Ara, you
Yeah.
being excited is different from feeling engaged and feeling joy. Excited can also
True.
mean a dangerous excitement, you know, like being on a roller coaster ride. So excitement is good up to a certain point, but then for long-term use, you need to have the engagement and the feeling of joy and peace, you know, connected to the building. Because, you know, excitement of dangerous kind, the long-term excitement is just as bad as anxiety.
No, you ask really good questions, Ara. You ask really, really good questions, and you have really good ideas. And the fact is, you're fresh out of architecture school. It's great. It'd be great fun to work with you or partner. I mean, there's lots more I could show you. It's just a lot here. I'm not quite sure.
No, yeah.
Here's what we talked about. Look.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that is engaging and cute, and it makes you smile. Okay, whereas the building is, you know, alien, shiny. Only an architect can get excited
And
about
so now
that building.
this is something else too. This software is the software that's a plugin for Photoshop now. It became a plugin for Photoshop, I think, in 2020. It's called 3M Visual Attention Software. Nikos has used it a lot.
Yeah, well, Anne and I have written 3 papers, scientific papers, using this software, because you don't have to do the eye tracking. You just put in
It does it in 30 seconds.
photo. Yeah,
I can show you how to use it. I hope to be getting my students. What they do is they do a study with this software this semester. So if you have Photoshop, it's $5 or $6 a month or something to get access, and you can basically. It shows, it's kind of like algorithmic eye tracking, but it only shows non-conscious behavior. It shows what they'll explain to you, what a 3M vision scientist once explained to me. He said, the first 3 to 5 seconds you look at anything, Ara, it's exactly the same as a monkey.
Whoa.
And then age, gender, culture, history, that comes consciously afterwards, right? And so this is so the non-conscious, exactly what Nikos was saying about attachment is so important. So this traditional carriage house, which is now a school, actually part of a private school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, people non-consciously will immediately attach to the building. Whereas the modern library built in Queens, New York, the architects don't know how people work. So they've designed a building where the fire hydrant
gets the most attention.
More attention than the building. And I once talked to the architect and she said, well, don't you see the word search in it?
Oh, I didn't even notice
the
that.
brain works.
It's so blurred out. You could barely make
So
it out.
blurred out. Yeah. Won't people see that? No. So they designed a building that the brain non-consciously won't look at. Which building would rather be on a postcard? You can tell, the traditional one, right? So there's
wait, there's something else. Look on the left, Ara. You see there's a huge focal point of the eye outside the edge of the building, looking at a tree in the back. The building itself, that whole glass facade, is without any interest at all. So that's a failure as an engaging
The
design.
failure, yeah, you got the edge and so basically people won't even think of going to the library because, attention, there's a Harvard Business School book that says attention is currency. I mean, right? Attention is, you're not going to have, it's important what you see, but the whole history of how modern architecture happened, that's something else we can get into later.
Okay, let me interject now. So this VAS software is really neat because it's just software and it mimics the eye tracking, and you can just have a nice photo, you scan the photo, and it gives you the simulated eye tracking. So that, it's extremely easy because you can have 20 different variants of a design and you scan all of them and you see which one is better.
Right. So it's not random. Like these are all buildings in Greater Boston. Most of them are under historic bylaw. You can't even change them. And they all suggest faces, but it turns out that's what humans need to see. Because as social species, we're built for what Nikos was saying, attachment. We need to, in part because the human baby is the most helpless infant born of all mammals. So it needs to subliminally, non-consciously attach. So that's why. So that skips over to architecture.
Yeah, let me stop you here. Ara, since we talked about both eye tracking and the software that simulates eye tracking, do you want any more details of that? Because that's a very powerful tool.
Sure, yeah, I'd love, I mean, if I could download the plugin for Photoshop, I'll probably check it out myself. I bet a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright's houses would perform pretty well with eye tracking. They're
Yeah,
pretty
the early houses are really gorgeous.
Yeah,
Not
and
the
he was
Guggenheim.
fighting, Frank Lloyd Wright was fighting the modernists. He knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
Something was wrong. And so that's a whole nother story, but I can tell you about that later. So.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, like the international style was really, really making things super bland and uncomfortable.
But not uncomfortable for people with PTSD because they can't process visual stimuli.
Dang.
That's how, that's the difference, because war gave us our world, right? And that's why we're speaking English and not German or Algonquin, because of war. And war also gave us modern architecture. It's a collapse after World War I of society, the need to rebuild, mass death, and then 20 years later, World War II,
Okay,
yeah.
Ara, you have us two here. What are the most pressing questions for you to become a famous architect by applying these new techniques that the other young architects don't know because they never heard about them in architectural school?
That's true, actually. Yeah, that is a missed opportunity in the architecture world that should be pushed. Yeah, I
But
agree.
that gives you and your friends an advantage. So how else can we help with this?
I don't know, but I mean, I think these conversations.
We could do a talk. If you have any groups, architecture groups in California, we'd be happy to do a talk. We could show you some of that software. I mean, the tech that's available now, including AI tech like 3M visual attention software, is amazing. And architects should start using it because I think modern clients and young people like you are interested in well-being, health, finding a front door, not feeling stressful. I mean, beauty. People are talking about beauty now. When I went to architecture school, the word was never mentioned.
Yeah. It was, oh, do you have a strong concept or not? It wasn't about, is it beautiful or not? It's like, what is the, do you have a strong intentional text behind your design?
Yeah, you have a strong concept, but the pivot is no, how will people feel?
Yeah.
Now, it just so happens that I have written 2 papers on beauty with another colleague of ours, Ann's, Alexandros Lavdas, and we define beauty in biological terms. So everything we have covered this last hour is used to define beauty. Beauty is not defined according to, classical style or societal norms. Beauty is defined biologically. What makes the body healthy.
That's exactly right. And that's what's so interesting. I think I got into this because I lived overseas. By the time I was 30, I'd lived 10 years outside the United States. Have you lived overseas at all, Ara?
Overseas? No, I haven't. Just in New York a bit and LA. Yeah, haven't lived overseas.
Okay, so I lived in India, Istanbul, Paris, London. And it was just really interesting to see how people would gravitate to the traditional architecture, never the modern. And I
Makes
couldn't
sense.
understand why, and I didn't understand what was going on, and that's what got me into this. And I realized, oh my God, there's a big thing here that we haven't looked at.
I think the best way to spread the message is probably making content for the internet, because I think that's where people's attention is. So like if we were to make some of these videos and put it out, I think architects and hopefully clients would like,
That,
because
if
usually
you
clients are
know
pushing the
anyone who
architect.
does videos in LA or California, I'm in. That'd be fantastic. Videos on the internet. And I also think there's a big new thing about concern about health and walkability, and you know, we want to go to walkable places. I met last year an American guy in his 60s, and he said to me, I went to Venice. I walked for an hour and a half. And in his whole 60 years living in the United States, he didn't know that could be an experience. He didn't know Italian. He was just like, and then the awe coming back in the United States telling me about it, it was like, what? But in a way that's very real. We haven't designed for what people
Okay,
really need.
yeah, I have to leave it and cut this. So Ara, listen, I recorded this. I will send you the recording. You are free to make your own little mini video and use pieces of this.
I do want to chop up clips of this for short form content, and I have a bunch of other videos to chop up clips from too, if anyone wants to help me out with that. You're more than welcome to join the team. Thank you everyone for watching. You made it this far. Might as well be subscribed, hit the bell, turn on notifications. Peace, love, positivity. I'll catch y'all next week in the next video.